Hey, all right. So I had some other observations that I wanted to share. Agent Smith here. I've got some another revelation I'd like to share with you. Being Agent Smith that I am. Smith. Call me Smith. All right, so we're talking about, investigating psychopaths. The pattern recognition. Like I said in my previous video, 9 times out of 10, if you watch an interrogation of a psychopath in like a murder investigation, 9 times out of 10, the psychopath's description of the victim or the missing person is that, they were, unfortunately they were really heavy into drugs, and as a result had a lot of mental illness, and I tried to help them, and I could tell unfortunately it wasn't doing any good, because they're just so mentally ill and drug addicted and making such poor life decisions that I just had to step back. And then you come to find out that's the actual person that killed that person. And that this story of mental illness and drug addiction was all like an over-exaggerated, fabricated story that the psychopathic murderer was using to distance themselves from having any involvement in killing that person. It's like, the reason that this person is missing is the only conclusion I can come to, being the psychopathic murderer that murdered them, is that, because they were so involved in drugs and mental illness and stuff like this, that's probably your answer as to what happened to them. They probably just disappeared somewhere, hanging out with the drug dealer, and being mentally ill and stuff somewhere far removed from anything that I do, because I'm not mentally ill or drug addicted or anything. I'm a chef. And again, this is a reflection of your society. Like, your society's go-to explanation for this massive homeless problem in the United States of America is, all those homeless, they're just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerates, and it's really unfortunate. The only help that there is for them is just to institutionalize them and force inject them with cures to mental illness, and force inject them with cures to drug addiction and stuff, because that's, outside of that, we're all just upstanding citizens. This is your fucking society, dude. Like, your society is totally retarded and is totally guilty, like criminal insanity. Your society is just like criminally insane. Those homeless people, they're just doing drugs and mental illness, and they're totally like, oh my God, look at those people over there. Your society is psycho, totally fucking psychotic, dude. And so some other observations regarding investigation. I wanted to go into this. This is an observation that I've gone into before, and I want to go over it some more again. So, because people, look, like, you have all these frauds, these snake oil salesmen that are claiming to you that they're investigating, the Jewish space lasers, and they've got all this evidence to support the Jewish space laser theory that the United States has been completely taken over by Jewish space lasers, right? And they're claiming they've got all this, that they're just like pattern recognition experts, and that they've discovered all these patterns because they're pattern recognition experts, right? And they're investigating the Jewish space lasers, and they're investigating the global genocide. They're investigating the vaccine that has everybody dropping like flies from. They're investigating all this because they're like experts in investigation. Yeah, like Corbett Report. They're just pattern recognition experts. You know, TrueStream Media, more pattern. All these pattern recognition experts, right? And they're always following the money. And see, these pattern recognition experts, they're trying to school you and teach you investigative techniques. And they're trying to teach you that you really need to follow the money. Just follow the money, man. The phrase follow the money is so gay, dude. It's totally gay. And I can already see your sphincters clenching up because you know that following the money is that you're all investigators with all your pattern recognition expertise, and you know that's how we have to follow the money, man. You know, because you're all you're all experts in investigation, and because TrueStream Media told you are. They schooled you on following the money, and everybody knows follow the money. So yeah, and that's you're following the evidence. If you're following the money, you're following the evidence, right? Because that's where the evidence is at. You follow the money, you're following the evidence. See, all you people are like, you're fucking lost, dude. You've been brainwashed by all these fucking so-called experts like the Corbett Report and all these so-called experts like Richie from Boston. Like, they're all telling you, well, just follow the money, man. So they're implying that if you follow the money, that's following the evidence. But see, like, dude, like, you don't have, it's not rocket science, you know? Like, you know, I've watched, you know, Forensic Files. It's very good. You know, I like watching this stuff. And like I said, you got this shit all over on YouTube. Investigative, you know, documentaries where investigators are investigating crimes and shit. And there's this thing that is there's this concept that is conspicuously absent from like this wall of conspicuous absence where they're not telling you. And that's because your society's media is communist propaganda. Your society. And I'm not talking about mainstream media. Yes, everyone knows mainstream media is bullshit. No, I'm talking about the Corbett Report, you know, all these guys, Dustin Nemos, Stu Peters, TrueStream Media, Crow House. It's all communist propaganda, dude. It's just these big walls of lies and half-truths. And like the majority of people are just falling for it. You know, they're just taking the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Follow the money. So Crow House will tell you follow the money. TrueStream Media will tell you follow the money. Corbett Report will tell you follow the money. Richie from Boston will tell you follow the money. Stu Peters will tell you follow the money. All these people say follow the money, like, you know, because they're the experts on pattern recognition, right? So if you want to talk about like pattern recognition and following evidence, okay, following evidence. Well, let's look at the idea of following evidence. And again, this is not rocket science. This is like basic common sense. Okay. So I'm gonna use a typical investigation as an example. You and I, we've seen these investigations over and over and over again. They're very common. It's public information. You can do your own research and come to your own conclusions, and you'll see that what I'm saying is totally true. Okay. So let's say there's some person that's missing. Some person's missing. Okay, it's like, okay. And you're a pattern recognition expert, right? You're a pattern recognition expert. And so you go in, so then you're like, okay, this person's missing. Well, let's go to where they live. And you go to their apartment and you open the door. And remember, this person's missing. And remember, you're a pattern recognition expert, right? So you're an expert. And you go in and you go into the apartment and The apartment's been ransacked. Like there's, drawers are open, and there's some things are tipped over. A shelf is tipped over. There's. It appears to be there was some kind of something happened, and you're a pattern recognition expert, right? So you're there to follow the evidence, right? The evidence. And so you start investigating because you're like, wow, wait a second. The drawers are open and there's clothes have been flung all about, and the bookshelves, the books are all falling on the floor. Like this place is in disarray. Obviously, there's something going on here. This is not normal, right? Because you're a pattern recognition expert. You can see this is evidence, right? And so you're like, well, obviously, someone has been in here looking for something, right? Because you're a pattern recognition expert. Obviously, somebody opened these drawers and threw all the clothes out. They're looking for something in the drawers, and you've got like the desk drawers are open and there's stuff flung all over. The file cabinet's open and there's file stuff all. I mean, they're looking for. And so then because you're a pattern recognition expert, like you're like, well, this is probably a robbery of some sort. They're looking for money and gold and jewels and, right? Like a robbery. This is a robbery gone wrong. And then you see some blood. Like a finger, you'll see a little bit of blood. Oh, this is definitely a robbery gone wrong. It appears as though somebody came in and robbed this place, and the missing person was there, and the robber obviously harmed the person because there's blood. So there's some kind of struggle. But there's like drawers open, everything, stuff flung on. They're looking for money, gold, jewels, and then it was a robbery gone wrong. Right? Because you're a pattern recognition expert. Okay? But then as you're looking around, you see a big stack of cash sitting on the, well, that's weird. Right? Wait a second. So if a robber came in here to rob this place, and they were pulling stuff out and stuff to find money and stuff, but here's like $1,000 cash just sitting on the table. And then you look around, well, here's like a gold Rolex watch. Wait a second. Huh. What? Right? Well, was it a robbery that was taking place here? Appears as though there's a lack of evidence of this being a robbery. Because if this was a robbery, then all these valuables that are just hanging around, none of them got taken. So it appears that there's a lack of evidence that this was a robbery. See, absence of evidence is evidence of absence. So because there's all these valuables in this apartment that appears to have been ransacked, well, those valuables that exist among this ransacked apartment suggest that there was no robbery. This isn't a robbery because there's no evidence of a robbery. There's no evidence of a robbery because there's valuables all over the place. Like, there's evidence that nothing was taken. Because the reason there is evidence that nothing was taken is because of the lack of evidence of things being taken. The absence of evidence is evidence of absence. You've seen these crime stories all the time. The absence of evidence is the evidence. The absence of any evidence of a burglary is evidence of absence. Like, is like, this explains that the absence of evidence that this was a robbery explains that this was not a robbery. Because if this was a robbery, you wouldn't have $1,000 sitting on the fucking, dresser. So the absence of evidence is evidence of absence. Would you disagree with that? If you have half a brain in your head, you would not disagree. You would be like, well, yeah, the absence of evidence is evidence. Right? I mean, you've seen this over and over. It's just like if a person is missing and the investigator goes into their apartment and stuff, and there is no evidence of a break-in or anything like of a struggle, well, that's evidence of absence. That means, like, if somebody did break into their apartment, if they didn't break in, it was somebody that the person knew. It's like, okay, if somebody did enter this apartment of the missing person, it had to have been someone that they knew, because there is no struggle, there is no evidence of any struggle, right? Or like a murder investigation, an investigation where the person is dead in the apartment, It's like, okay, this person is dead inside their own apartment, and the investigators go in, and when they go into the apartment, there's no sign of any struggle. And if there's no sign of any struggle, that means that there's a likelihood that the murderer was a acquaintance of the victim. Otherwise, you would see a sign of a struggle, like the door would be broken, there'd be shit. But no, the door isn't broken, there is no sign of a struggle, and here's this person dead on the floor. That means whoever killed them likely is somebody that victim knew and was probably friends with or something. They knew the person that killed them. Absence of evidence is evidence of absence. The absence of any kind of struggle in the crime scene that is the victim's apartment shows that the victim was likely victimized by someone that person knew, as opposed to like a burglar that just came in to steal shit. The absence of evidence is evidence of absence, okay? So now let's go back to this whole concept of follow the money. Isn't that what the whole concept of follow the money means? To follow the evidence, okay? So if you're following the evidence with this whole concept of following the money, because the money is where the evidence is. Well, what happens when you come to an area where there is no money, where it's like, wow, that's evidence of absence. Okay. What my point is that you're being led on a fucking snipe hunt, dude. When they're telling you follow the money, they're omitting, that's a half truth, because they're omitting the other half of that truth is to observe the absence of evidence as well as the evidence itself. What they're telling you is don't pay any attention to the absence of evidence. Only focus on the evidence, right? That would be like if you were investigating, this person is dead in their own apartment, and you go in, right? And you look around and you're like, well, there is no evidence of a struggle. And then all your coworkers, what do you call them? Everybody else is saying, oh, don't even. So what? Who cares that there wasn't a struggle here? That has not. That there ain't no evidence. That is no evidence. We're looking for evidence, bro. So stop wasting our time pointing out the lack of evidence here, because we're looking for evidence, not the lack of evidence. And you're like, well, dude, like all I'm saying is that there's nothing in disarray in this apartment, yet the person who lives in the apartment is dead on the floor. I mean, wouldn't that suggest that something isn't the lack of evidence of a struggle evidence itself? I mean, doesn't that mean anything? And they're like, dude, shut up, bro. We're looking for evidence. You keep talking about the absence of evidence. We're looking for evidence. And you just keep pointing out that the lack of evidence. Dude, you're just a cynic, man. You're just we're trying to be optimistic here, looking for evidence, and you're just pointing out the lack of evidence, you know. You're bringing our investigation down, bro. And you're like, no, I'm just saying that the lack of evidence is evidence itself. Shut up, bro. Whatever, Don't you understand? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, look at all this homelessness. Look at all the lack of money. Shut up, bro. We're trying to follow the money. I know, but what I'm saying is look at all these look at where the money isn't going. I mean, you got fucking masses of homeless U.S. citizens eating out of dumpsters that don't have. Shut up, bro. We're trying to follow the money here. You're ruining our investigation. And I know that a lot of you people that are into all this follow the money, you're trying to act like, oh, I know what Angry Hobo is saying. But you're never looking at the absence of evidence. You're never talking about the absence of money. You're always doing, you have a herd mentality. These people tell you what to do and you do it without question. You don't ever be like, well, wait a second. If we're following the money, what about the lack of money? Like, you have all these homeless people. Shut up, bro. We're trying to follow the money. And then you're like, okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, well, let's keep following the money then, you guys. Yeah, you're pussies. You're not doing a thorough investigation. And you're not gonna. You're gonna, oh yeah, no, oh whatever. Yeah, so what? Yeah, I'm just gonna keep being a sheep. I'm not gonna think for myself. Angry Hobo keeps bringing up the homeless. I'm following the money. Angry Hobo's way off in some other, like, it's investigation 101, dude. It's like totally, it's not rocket science, bro. So 1% of the world's population holds the lion's share of all wealth. Well, what about everyone else? Like, why are there all these fucking why is there all this third world poverty? Just where you live. You don't have to look at the global. Like, why is there third world poverty in the richest country in the world? Oh, because they're all lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant degenerates, you guys. Let's get back to following the money. This Angry Hobo, he don't even know nothing, man. Did you guys see the latest Corbett report? All these so-called pattern recognition experts that just ignore the homeless. In their investigation to follow the money. Why do they ignore all the? Oh, because those are just lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted. They all need to be institutionalized. Don't even worry about that. Absence of evidence is evidence, dumb fucks. And until you start looking at the homeless, like, you're a failure, dude. You're never gonna figure it out. You're never gonna figure out the whole money thing, like what's going on, follow the money. You're not following the money. You're not doing anything. And that is why your favorite communist propagandist programs are always ignoring the homeless problem, always ignoring it, always directing you to the Rothschilds and the Jewish space lasers, never talking about the absence of evidence. Again, that's just like if you were an investigator going into a crime scene and you were to point out the absence of evidence and all your colleagues start calling you stupid because you're supposed to be looking for evidence, not the absence of it. When the absence of evidence is evidence of absence, you dumb fucks. If you go into a crime scene that appears ransacked and therefore appears to be a robbery, but then you see an absence of evidence that there was any robbery, that absence of evidence is evidence, you dumb fucks. But who is, dude, you know, so all your favorite propagandists, they're all fucking fakes, frauds, liars, snakes. And this is all observable. Like, it's totally obvious. Nobody's talking about this massive, exponentially growing homeless problem in the richest country in the world. Why? Well, because we're following the money. It's the Jewish space lasers. Dumb. Stupid. They want you stupid. That's why the communist propaganda exists, is to make you fucking stupid. All right. See you, boys.